Hey, what's good, y'all? So, Terence Crawford, undefeated, unified, multi-divisional champion, wants a 50-50 split against 28-0, unified champion at 147? Really? Look, here's my thing, right? Terence Crawford is demanding way too much for what he actually offers. He's demanding far too much from my perspective. He's demanding so much money, approximately 15 million, not 50 million, but 15 million in revenue, despite him not even selling that much pay-per-view compared to Errol Spence. The 15 million would be a good offer if he actually sold a good pay-per-view, but unfortunately he doesn't. He doesn't sell as well as an Errol Spence. Errol Spence would always be the A side in this situation, whether if it's about history or not. He should just bite down and take a lesser offer, maybe 60-40 or even 70-30 in some instances, to really secure this fight, because otherwise this fight may never happen in the first place. If he wants to have a legacy as a fighter, he should probably take that offer and deal. Despite him being an undisputed champion in a previous weight class, he doesn't draw an audience. He doesn't draw that much of an audience in the first place. He doesn't. If he drew more of an audience, this fight would be an easy 50-50, but he doesn't. He doesn't draw as much of an audience as an Errol Spence. And secondly, too, he fought older versions of fighters that Errol Spence has already beaten. You know, he's fought an older Kell Brook. He's fought an older Sean Porter, who were both still, they weren't like washed and completely they weren't completely washed up. They weren't completely washed fighters, but they still were not the same when Errol Spence fought them. When it comes to resume, the resume thing isn't too much of a thing I would have an issue against. It's more or less of the earnings of both fighters and how much they sell and how much they can sell out arenas according to the audience. Like, I'm aware that people typically say that Terence Crawford has the worst resume and he hasn't fought anyone, but really compare their resumes. Just take Kell Brook and Sean Porter out of both of their resumes. Their resumes start to stagnate a little bit more and they start to look more equal and side to side, whether if you consider the Kell Brook or Sean Porter thing, or take that out of the equation, you know? And as for their potential fight, I think Crawford is in a situation where he is doing too much. He may be doing too much in this situation. He may be doing far too much than what should be happening. I've even heard somewhere about Al Heyman offering him a 80-20 deal. The 80-20 thing goes far too far, in my opinion, because of how much Terence Crawford has done in his career. I would only agree on 60-40. 60-40 is my only personal perspective. I don't think that this is a 50-50 fight in terms of purses at all. I'm aware that Crawford has stopped every single opponent ever since he came to 147 and that he was undisputed, but who sells out arenas? Errol Spence. Who does the more pay-per-view? Errol Spence. Like, seriously, even against Ugas, even Errol Spence's pay-per-view against Ugas sold more than, I'm pretty sure it sold more than Amir Khan's pay-per-view in terms of revenue and earnings. So, and the reason why actually, before I say so, and the reason why I actually compare that is because Terence Crawford and Amir Khan were considered bigger names than Ugas himself. Now, Errol Spence is a bigger name than both Terence Crawford and Amir Khan, but wait, no. As of right now, yes, that is true. Because there was at one point where if I were to consider like Amir Khan and Errol Spence prime for prime in terms of popularity, I would pick Amir Khan. I think Amir Khan was the bigger fighter in terms of popularity. But as of right now, and as of that point, you know, Amir Khan was a bigger star than Ugas, and Errol Spence still took the lion's share of the pay-per-view when that fight happened. It's essentially a comparison. And this is just a whole debacle and mess. Errol Spence is demanding, not Errol Spence. I mean, Terence Crawford is demanding a lot from someone who isn't that profitable of a fighter. I understand he makes a lot of money in his fights. I understand Bob Arum has his pays, keeps him paid and stuff, keeps him even paid more than Spence sometimes in terms of purses, yes. That is true. That is true. Bob Arum does keep him paid. But Bob Arum has said himself he wasted too much on Terence Crawford. So, which is ridiculous. Your promoter shouldn't be talking to you about like that. That's mad disrespectful. I'm surprised he's still with Top Rank right now. That's horrible. That is terrible. I'm not sure why the hell he's letting himself get disrespected like that. He could really stomp on his face. But I'm not saying he should, but I'm just saying, goddamn. And if this fight is like in jeopardy. This fight is nearly in jeopardy based off of the lack of agreements on each side. Soon enough, Terence Crawford's going to be in his mid-30s, 35. Well, basically 34, 35, and 36 are in mid-30s, so yeah. But soon enough, he's going to get older, and Errol Spence is going to still be the younger one. And once that athleticism starts to fade and the speed starts to fade, he could be in for the taking if that Errol Spence fight doesn't happen. I'm sure he can go up to Charlo, which would be a less profitable fight, but he's more likely to get it because Charlo isn't as big as an Errol Spence. I'm not sure if anyone would ever argue with that, but the 154 division has never been bigger than the 147 division. Maybe for like a year or two, or maybe a year, but other than that, the division has never been super spectacular in terms of popularity. And Terence could take that opportunity moving up in that division to fight a bigger fighter who's more of a risk. Well, actually, who's less of a risk, in my opinion. I think Jermell Charlo is less of a risk than in Errol Spence in terms of fighting to really beat. If Crawford went up to 154 and never faced Errol Spence and did beat Charlo, it would give the illusion that, wow, Terence Crawford was really better than Errol Spence, when typically, from how I see it, smaller fighters typically beat up the bigger fighters in that division. I've seen instances where 147 fighters have went up and just put beatings on 154 fighters. Now, I've seen instances where 147 fighters have gotten beatings from 154 fighters as well, but we clearly seen Bryant Perella beat Tony Harrison now. We saw that. We saw Bryant Perella beat Tony Harrison by a unanimous decision. I don't care if that fight was scored a draw or not. He obviously won. He obviously won that fight. You let a Bryant Perella who lost to Luis Collazo, got washed by Yordenis Ugas, got knocked out by Abel Ramos, beat you as a 154 fighter in his 154 debut. Now, I understand Brian Perella has the dimensions of a 154 fighter, and this was probably a better division for him, but shoot, man, for the pedigree of fighter at 147, it's crazy how he beat Tony Harrison. And we all know he did. The 154 division looked terrible after the COVID pandemic break. For real. Firstly, Jarrett Hurd lost to Luis Arias. Secondly, Julian Williams lost to Vladimir Hernandez. Like, I don't know what's up with that division and them coming back. They got hit the worst when it came to COVID. Like, or maybe it's just that their fighters, it's just that those types of fighters are not the fighters that people think they are out to be in that 154-pound division. I don't know. It's like a mixture between them losing to journeyman's level like competition and them also beating elite competition in different instances. You know, you've seen Charlo dominate Sergey Derevianchenko, and you've seen Jarrett Hurd lose to Arias after almost like beating an Arislandi Lara. So it's like a mixed bag of styles colliding with one another, and it just creates a whole mess. Terence Crawford is seen as the #1 welterweight on BoxRec right now. I'd put Errol Spence at the top. Right now. Now, ever since 2020, I've always agreed with the opinion of having it 60-40 for Errol Spence because we all know that Errol Spence is a bigger star. I would never say 60-40 Crawford, simply for one reason. Crawford doesn't sell. He doesn't. If he sold, yes, but we're talking about sales, not actual skills. Skills aren't going to be the only thing that makes you the A side in a fight. Floyd was a skilled fighter. Lomachenko was a skilled fighter. Everybody's a skilled fighter, right? There are so many skilled fighters out there, but that doesn't sell you fights. It doesn't. It's good to be undefeated and have good enough skills, but to really be a top superstar or the A side of every single situation, you're going to have an audience gravitate towards you for whatever reason that is. And Terence Crawford doesn't have that, but Errol Spence does. Errol Spence, in my opinion, has greater mass appeal than a Terence Crawford right now, especially right now. Actually, no, but especially in general. It's not by a drastic length, but it's by a pretty reasonable length. You know, I'm not sure who's going to be the next big fighter in this division, but it's all speculation. It's all speculation. Blair Cobb should be the biggest fighter, you know, but too bad he lost. So yeah, let me know your guys' opinions about this situation with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. I don't think Crawford and Spence is 50-50. And the fight itself, it is 50-50. But in terms of purses, this is not 50-50. This ain't no 50-50. He should either take 60-40 or 80-20 in reality. All right. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching so much. Goodbye. And hit the notification bell.